Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about a recent settlement in the state's cases against the Juul product. That's Juul, not Jewel. And I'll give you a little background, a little history. More on that in just a moment. So in 1997 and 1998, I was involved in the Great Tobacco War, where the states all across the country took on big tobacco to try and deal with the way that they were marketing their products, particularly as non-addictive when they knew that it was addictive, and particularly for them downplaying the cancer risk, which everybody knew at that point it caused cancer, and the denial of it was just ridiculous. But at any rate, I was involved in that, and it involved all of the big name frontline law firms in blue and white collar defense. Latham and Watkins, Thompson and Coburn, Arnold and Porter, King and Spalding. All these big guys got involved and got a piece of this, and for the most part, they did a fine job for their clients, but at the end of the day, the clients still had to settle because the cost of litigating 50 separate cases would simply have bankrupted all of them. So they made what they considered, I guess, to be a devil's bargain, and they paid off the states. And although there have been a few other tobacco cases that have been brought, most of those have not been brought by governmental entities. And as a result of that, there hasn't been a lot of situations where there's a huge settlement as a result of that. So one of the things that happened right after the Great Tobacco Wars is vaping came into its own. Those of you who understand what that is a piezoelectric cell in a small device, usually battery powered. And it uses this piezoelectric device to nebulize some form of nicotine-based product. And the product has nicotine in it, so it's addictive, and it usually has other flavors. Sometimes it, and particularly with regard to Juul, it had flavors that would be attractive to kids, cotton candy type flavors. And as a result of that, it was marketed more or less very heavily toward children. As a result, a lot of kids became addicted. Now, I thought it was funny because as a former respiratory therapist, I was one of the first to jump on the bandwagon and say, you absolutely cannot promote this. There were some people who promoted it as a safe way to quit smoking, but it wasn't. It was just a safer way, in some respects, to ingest larger quantities of an organic poison. That's what nicotine is. It's an organic poison. And that organic poison will eventually cause cancer. And it may cause other problems too. And it certainly shouldn't be something that a 10 or 12-year-old could go and get. Now, I had a lot of experience with tobacco as a child because I grew up in the back of a Volkswagen headed down I-70, and both of my parents smoked, and I spent most of the trip with my nose stuck out the rear window trying to get a breath of fresh air. So I have never been very much in favor of smoking, and as a result, I felt like vaping was just a different way of putting the same product out in a equally deadly form. And many of you may have seen the commercials that are here on YouTube that say it can put toxic metals like nickel and lead into your lungs. And it can. So, if you want your chest x-ray to show up like a buffalo nickel, then I suppose doing vaping is something that you might consider. And there were a number of people who suffered severe injuries and deaths as a result of polluted vape products, and for that reason, I would think that a reasonable person would not be engaged in that kind of behavior. But children are easily manipulated, and They convince themselves that they're not addicted, it's just something they like. My parents would never say they were addicted to tobacco. What they'd say was it was a bad habit. And that bad habit eventually cost both of them their lives. So the Juul settlement here is for $438 million, which is not a huge number. The tobacco settlements were in the billions. But for a company that does about $2 billion a year in gross revenue, it's a sizable chunk of money. Now, it may be that people at Juul who were behind the marketing to kids may lose their jobs, but the damage has already been done. The FDA is now regulating this stuff, but the people who as children were addicted to this because they were children and bought into the hype from Juul are already their customers. And so the damage has already been done. And in fact, now what you have is the government putting this penalty into Juul and essentially putting its stamp of this is bad, you shouldn't do it, which of course for teenagers and many others, it's just a good reason to go out and do it. So although there are things to cheer in this regard, that the states are recovering money that can be used to stop this behavior, the fact is that it's not as big a deal as many people are going to make it out to be. I think the law firms that were involved made a lot of money off this, and I think, but at least on the defense side, made a lot of money on this. And it cost Juul pretty heavily to get to this point. And I'm sure that the paying the settlement is going to, hurt them fairly badly. But the bottom line is they and all of the other vape makers are still going to be in business at the end of the day. So how much good did it really do? That's a question for you guys to answer. So hopefully, if you have not already done so, you can go over here to our and subscribe to our channel. And if you would, I would appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. You know all the stuff to do. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm, and that's a good thing. So thank you for watching. Have a terrific day, and I will catch you on here next time.